And of all the superlatives...
Fighting. One of the best things God created along with coffee and boobies. But what is fighting? Michael, feast us here. Let's talk more importantly, who is fighting? And who is who working for? Why everybody's favorite fight network? Hub. No wait, wrong script. Why everybody's favorite fight network? The UFC. But what all you little childrens don't know is that when the UFC was a wee little baby, it was almost snuffed out of existence from its crib by the real life T-1000. That's right, Johnny. Corrupt politicians.
Peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
But thankfully for us, an absolute unit of a man would step up to the plate when we needed him most and take the failing sport of MMA, sending it to the moon, just like the autists on Wall Street Bets did to GameStop. And his name was Dana White. That's Dana Frederick White, y'all bunch of dirty-minded rascals. 0 to hero, Dana White. Here we go.
Pump the brakes, pump the brakes.
What's up, boomers? Welcome back to the channel. It's me, your mama's favorite bad boy. And welcome to another episode of What the Ufk is Going On. Today, of course, we were talking about the man, the myth, the sandpaper head himself. That's White, Donald Trump's best bud in the entire world, Mr. Dana White. Before we get into the video, only a small fraction of you guys are subscribed to the channel. What's up with that, man? I thought we had something special going on. As some of you already know, my knee hurts, so I can't do jujitsu. And as the saying goes, 1 sub equals 1 prayer. So if you at all care about me getting better so I can get back on the mats, hit that subscribe button, baby. And if you ever find out you despise me, you can always unsub and dislike at any time. Dana Frederick White Jr. was born on July the 28th in the year of the chicken. That's 1969 for all you curious bastards out there. He had a pretty average childhood by all accounts that probably looked something a little like this. Hey Dana, what's good? Oh, you know, I'm out here just thinking about punching someone in the face. Hey, do you want to come to the locker room with us? We're about to hit this dank cron.
That's fucking illegal.
Good on you, Dana. Now, as any good Irish-American citizen, he would get into boxing at the young age of 17. And shortly after, he would become one of the coaches at his gym, where he would, of course, be teaching the most important class of all, the cardio boxing class. That's right, helping 60-plus-year-old ladies shred some of those dreaded pounds and live in their best body. Now, the first big event in the manga, according to Dana himself, was when a mobster would call him up demanding $2,500. And adjusting for inflation, that's about $25,000 by today's money. According to Dana, as soon as he demanded that, he immediately hung up the phone, called up the airport, and booked a one-way ticket to the city of glitz and glamour itself, Las Vegas, Nevada, where he would attempt to turn over a new leaf and start over with a clean slate. Now, for the time being, we're gonna leave Dana with his problems and head on over to somewhere else in the world where a family of martial artists from Brazil who practice this thing called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Bajaja for short. And this family was a little revolutionary for its time. They had the bright idea of taking their Bajaja out into the world and challenging other martial artists from different disciplines to demonstrate the effectiveness of their martial art in unarmed one-on-one combat. They were like Einsteins, except armed with muscles instead of calculus. And with their Gracie challenge, where they took on all other disciplines, they would show the effectiveness of their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and its sheer dominance over karate, Muay Thai, Kung Fu, even the one-finger death touch. The impact that they have left on the world of martial arts to this day can still not be understated. And they would outdo themselves yet again in 1993 when they had a genius idea. Hey dude, we've been trolling these karate nerds for a while now, huh? Oh yeah, I totally love the ego boost. So I have an idea. Let's do it again, but this time on national television. You're a genius. Their event, UFC 1, would go on to having a huge impact on the zeitgeist, taking the world of combat sports and in one night completely turning it on its head. For the first time in human history, millions of people would tune in to see an average-looking guy absolutely destroy giants twice his size with moves that few people had ever even seen before. They had truly caught lightning in a bottle with their no-holds-barred form of one-on-one unarmed combat. They literally had 2 rules: no eye gouging and no biting. If you want to pick someone up, drop them on their head, that's fair game. Soccer kick someone in the face when they're on the ground, cool too. Brute force castrations, A+ as well. It was true truly the Wild West. And the way they were marketing themselves was very attention grabbing. Their slogan was 2 guys fighting with no time limit, where the fight would end by tap out, knockout, or death. And as we shall see, that did turn out to cause a little bit of a hassle later on down the road. And this would come to a head in 1996 when I was barely a year old. When John McCain, everybody's favorite president, bro, you know he was never president, right? Yeah. I knew that. Would lead a crusade to Thanos the UFC out of existence, calling it human cockfighting. And I'm sure this was all as a concerned politician and had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he was a huge boxing fan and had friends in the boxing industry. Anyways, everybody's favorite presidential runner-up was so successful in his campaign. By 1997, interest in MMA was at an all-time low. With the state of New York outlawing the sports completely, it forced an entire event, UFC 12, Judgment Day, to relocate from Niagara Falls to Dothan, Alabama, over 1,100 miles with 2 days notice. And by an absolute miracle, the beauties who staffed the event were able to pull it all together, making it an actually decent night of fights. It would also be the first event that would see this beauty with an amazing head of hair get his first post-fight interviews.
I'm here live with Victor. Congratulations, Victor.
What a guy. Last time we checked with Dana, he had just hightailed it out of Boston to Las Vegas, Nevada to avoid being whacked by a mobster. In Vegas, he would soon get into the fight scene as he would become the manager for Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell, or as I like to call them, Big Head and Hawk.
He's mine.
And it was while he was here that he would find out that the owners of the soon-to-be irrelevant UFC were trying to cut their losses and sell the company. And as a bona fide superfan of the sport, of course, he would love nothing more than to acquire the company and lead it in the direction that he thought best. However, he did have one problem. He had no money. And so he would make a call to his longtime childhood friend, Lorenzo Fertitta. Hey Dana. Hey, me need money, go punch punch. Whoa, hang on there. You haven't even talked to me since I was 6. Am I just a walking dollar sign to you, Dana? My man go boom boom bam. Okay, wait Dana, I just have one question. How much is it? Not too much. How much? Just 2 mil. What the The Fertittas did end up buying the UFC for a cool $2 million. And when I say the UFC, I'd mean just the brand name and a single old octagon, as the previous owners had sold off all of their assets to avoid going bankrupt. Even their website, UFC.com, had been sold to user-friendly computers. But Dana and Lorenzo saw potential in this new project of theirs. The UFC had been banned from selling any pay-per-views, which is crazy because you could still buy adult films on pay-per-view. Another excellent example of the turbo boomers who sit down in office to make our laws, doing such a great job. But our boy Lorenzo was plugged in well in Las Vegas. He had solid connections to the Nevada State Athletic Commission, or NSAC, as we shall be calling it from here on out. Anyways, he was quickly able to get the UFC back on pay-per-view and on TV out in Nevada. And as Lorenzo's family owned a string of casinos out here in Vegas, they were well connected in the scene and would help get the UFC into bigger venues like the Trump Mahal and even the MGM Grande. And compared to the previous owners, they were also masters of marketing and advertising. And after a year, would see their first big surge in popularity with UFC 40 Vendetta, headlined by a grudge match between blonde Thanos and Barbie's boyfriend Ken on steroids.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death.
This event would be a crucial point for the fledgling organization, as they would sell 150,000 pay-per-view buys, which would more than triple their average event. I imagine it felt a little like whenever my first videos started to take off, before I was on this non-stop train towards irrelevancy. This would be a high point for the early UFC, as they would get picked up by TV networks like USA Today and ESPN. But despite this, the UFC was still very deeply in the red. By 2004, the Fertittas had lost a cool $34 million, which is almost as much as your friend Kyle lost on Dogecoin. And let's be honest, here any sane person would have said, peace out, Girl Scout, cut their losses and gotten on out of there. But Dana White was not just any person. He was an MMA super fan who had dropped out of college not once, but twice, crossed a legit mobster and lived to tell the tale. For Dana, it was all or nothing. And Dana had one more trick up his sleeve. Hey Dana, how's that project going? Oh, it's going great. Fighter go boom, boom, bam. So how much money has it made? Well, let's just say cash has been flowing. Great, I'll check my bank account right now. Well, one thing you should know. Yes, that 34 mil hasn't come in, it's gone out. What? How am I supposed to flex on Instagram now, Dana? Well, Instagram really isn't a thing yet, so I think you should be good. Dana, what have you done with my money? I do have one more idea. What is it? Have you ever heard of reality TV? You're a genius. The idea was incredibly simple that even you could understand it. 8 or so fighters all living in the same house for about 10 episodes or so. Each episode you see a different matchup where the winner stays in the house, the loser goes home. You eliminate the fighters one by one in this fashion until the last man standing earns a $100,000 contract with the UFC. And the show's name was The Ultimate Fighter. And now that they had their concept, all they needed was a network to pick them up. And there was definitely some interest.
Oh, my boss would have my ass.
And
Crazy, Jim? Get lost.
You.
It wasn't until they offered to put down $10 million towards the production cost of the show that Spike TV, who is watched exclusively by people who drink Monster Energy, decided to sign them for 1 season and give them a shot. The show was an instant success, as giving an insight into the sophisticated lives of people who make a living by punching each other in the face was something the public couldn't get enough of. And I can totally see why. But nobody could have possibly predicted what was about to happen in the finale. In the main event, 2 corn-fed boys plucked straight out of a cow field in the Midwest would square off against each other for the coveted $100,000 UFC contract. Both men knew that this was likely their last shot of making it in the sport. And as they would warm up in the locker room, both men would decide to give absolutely everything in this one fight. Both men would have rather died than squander the opportunity that they were being given. And as soon as the fight started, it was an instant classic, with both men going toe-to-toe all 15 minutes of the fight, from the first bell to the last. Millions of Americans from across the country would tune in for this brawl of epic proportions. It would be seen by more people than anybody could have possibly imagined. But unfortunately, there could only be one winner, and the judges decided to award a unanimous decision to Forrest Griffin. But since both men had given their absolute everything in this fight, in a spur-of-the-moment decision, Dana would award both of them the 6-figure UFC contract, and Spike TV would immediately sign them for a 2nd season that night in the parking lot. To this day, Dana White credits this night for saving the UFC. As the saying goes, brain damage? Funny. All of Dana's hard work was starting to pay off, and their growth would continue to skyrocket, just like your friend Kyle claims that Bitcoin is about to. UFC 52 would sell 300,000 pay-per-view buys, which doubled the previous high watermark of UFC 40. And a year later, Dana White would resurrect the ghost of Royce Gracie, who had not fought in 11 years. And he would put him up against the current welterweight champion, Matt Hughes, who had been slamming fools into alternate dimensions. A monster up against a 40-year-old who hasn't fought in over a decade. You know what? That's gotta be where Oscar De La Hoya got his bright idea from. Unsurprisingly, Matt did a little boom boom bam, winning the fight in the first round by TKO. This card would again double the pay-per-view record with 600,000. And in December of that year, they would put Big Brain against a man who has had the same hair for 2 decades at UFC 66, which would again break the record with over 1 million pay-per-view buys. Dana had made it in a little over 5 years. He had taken a dying, bankrupt company and turned it into one of the fastest throwing sports empires in history, armed with an extremely loyal fan base. The UFC had passed both boxing and wrestling in sheer popularity, and it was all due to one man's self-belief and one man's massive bank account. Dana and crew had established the UFC as the premier MMA promotion, and over the next few years would begin swallowing up all the smaller competitors. The WEC, Pride, Strikeforce, among other promotions, clamping down on the market with their diamond-handed grip. They would also bring on a former detractor in Josh Radner. No, wait. Mark Radner, who had previously teamed up with our boy John McCain way back in the day to permanently ban the UFC from existence. Ironically, he would help legalize the sport of MMA in other states and countries and help the UFC spread its all-encompassing tentacles to swallow up the entire planet. Meanwhile, dominant champions like Anderson Chicken Leg Silva, Ground and Pound Pierre,
I'm not impressed by your performance,
and John Snow on the Mountaintop Jones would add prestige to the organization as it would spread to a wider audience. But unbeknownst to everyone, there was a storm brewing, and it was coming from none other than the appendix of Europe, the island nation of Ireland. In February 2013, Dana frickin' White would sign an Irish fighter by the name of Conor McGregor. And unknown to him at the time, nothing in the UFC would ever be the same. In his debut fight, he would stop the beast Marcus Brimage in 67 seconds, getting on the mic afterwards and demanding the $60,000 knockout bonus.
Dana, 60 G's, baby!
He would then bust out 4 dubs back to back over the next couple years. But one of the things that made him stand out above all the other talents was the brutal trash talk that he would use to antagonize his opponents in the build up to their fights. Telling his opponents he would take their heads clean off. I mean, just look at what this poor guy had to say about it.
I've never disliked somebody that much ever before.
The hype train had left the station. With every fight, every press conference, every call out on Twitter, the hype train was gaining more and more momentum. And in an unprecedented move, Dana White would slout him for a championship bout against current dominant champion Jose Aldo, who had gone undefeated in the UFC, barely even losing a single round. Dana would schedule a world tour to build up more hype for the fight, in which Conor would demonstrate his utter disrespect for anybody that was not him. He would go so far as to swipe Aldo's belt clean out of his hands at one of their pressers. I mean, this man had more balls than Jordan. The hype train had gone supersonic, as the Conor stands could not wait for their boy to become undisputed champion, and everybody else could not wait to see him sprawled out on the canvas. But like any fight that just has to happen, there was a little bit of a hiccup. Aldo was forced to pull out 2 weeks before his fight with a rib injury because Brazilians go hard as balls in sparring, giving former title contender Chad Mendes the opportunity not only to step in the cage and win the belt, but to sharpen up his trash talking ability.
I'm 5'6". You're 5'4" at least. 3 inches taller than me, buddy.
Nice one, Chad. You got him. Chad would be successful in taking him down in the first round and go to Pound Town. However, by the end of it, he was absolutely exhausted as he was fighting with only 2 weeks of preparation. And our boy, Mystic Mac, would show himself at the end of the second round, putting him away with these hands. This W would set Conor up for one of the most iconic moments in UFC history, as in December, he would legitimize his claim to the featherweight throne in brutal fashion with a 13-second knockout win. The haters had been silenced. Conor's brash trash talking had been validated. This larger-than-life personality had shot the UFC into the mainstream with his unbelievable 13-second demolition of one of the most dominant champions the featherweight division has ever seen. Truly, you can't script this stuff. Dana White's rags to riches story is truly the stuff of legend. From a 2-time college dropout teaching cardio boxing to grannies, to the figurehead of one of the most powerful media empires in the world, besides TikTok, of course. And clearly, luck did have a part to play in this story. I mean, how many of us can just discover an unknown sport that it turns out everybody loves to watch? But on the other hand, how many people have the drive to grind for years and years with little to no results? If there's something we can learn from Dana, I think it's to have unshakable belief in yourself and take the plunge. Also, having a friend who's a multimillionaire, it's gotta be up there too. All right, guys, that's all for the video. It's a bit long, I know. Honestly, these are the types of videos that I like to watch, so these are the types of videos I'm gonna be making. Anyways, let me know what you think about it down below. Shout out to Madawson for following me on Instagram. I will be following one of you every single week, so head on over to my Instagram, Jedi_himself, link down below. If y'all are new around here, my name's Jedi. I make the best gosh darn videos on all of YouTube, so be sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. If you liked the video, thumbs up. If you hated it, thumbs down. Duh. I will talk to y'all in the next video. Remember, stay consistent. You can do whatever you set your mind to.